It has been said that podcasts have become boring. Too many people who are happy to share nonsense opinions about topics that don't even matter, or politicise everything in the aim to spark both clickbait topics and outrage. But what about those who try to do something fun? Today's guests, Niccole and Arabella, have a chemistry founded on years of friendship and a shared interest. That interest, kink, BDSM, and a story that blurs the lines between reality and fiction. But the Unruly Podcast isn't just about adult entertainment. It's informative, educational, and aims to bring out the more human side to adult topics. Plus, it's an incredibly fun listen. Arabella, Niccole, thank you so much for joining the Unfiltered Podcast. First off, for those of you who might not know much about it, tell us a little bit about your podcast, what it's about.
Woo!
Yeah, right, I'm going to let you take this one, Nikki.
Oh, thank you. I knew this is a question we get often, and yet every time we're like, So basically, we tell a story on the podcast, literature. So we both read it from our perspective, and it's a story about Bella and myself going on tour with our favorite band and everything that happens backstage, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Either backstage or in hotel rooms.
Or anywhere.
Is this based on a true story? That's the question I think most people ask you guys, right?
Yeah, no, it's not. This is based on writing that Niccole is the main writer. I sort of creatively edit bits. We've been writing over the past 16 years. Yeah. And we've sort of come and gone from it, lived in it. It's just sort of been our little haven where we...
That said, there are snippets of reality in there. Absolutely. Yes. Like the kink stuff we talked about, most of it we have experienced. Most, not...
When we're talking about us and telling stories about us in the podcast, in the writing, that stuff is mainly true.
Yeah.
But the being on tour with the band and that is fiction.
Yes, it is fiction.
So you guys have been writing for 15 years. How did that start?
That would be me.
That would be you.
So as I was... basically the year, just a couple of months before I started my degree, I went to go see one of my favorite bands, and it sparked a bit of a fantasy world in my brain. And then I started writing. I was 20, so I started writing like a kind of a fan fiction, if that makes sense. But it turned out to be a bit of a coming of age and coming into sexuality and coming into bisexuality and coming into kink, all out on the paper, basically. So it's kind of like a journal of sexuality. Ooh,
yes.
Good tagline.
I like that.
We're going to keep that one.
Yeah.
And then not much longer after, we started our degree and we met on the first night of uni. And after a house party, not knowing where the hell I was going, I followed her and her friends.
Which we did not know where we were going.
Generally, we were set loose on Southend-on-Sea.
Yeah, and blind leading the blind.
Yes. But I didn't know what was happening for the next day or anything. And Nikki had a timetable, I guess. And so I went up to her room, and as soon as I walk in, I just see the walls plastered with my favourite band. And we had a little freak out sort of...
shared musical bond. And then we were basically overnight friends. Absolutely.
Almost best friends instantly. We just clicked.
How she got involved in the story is we were probably friends for about 2 months when I finally had the guts to reveal this story, because I was like,
I don't think it was even 2 months. I think it was less.
Okay, it might have been less. I can't remember the exact dates, but I remember us being together in your room and then went, oh, I have the story that I'm writing. And you were like, read me some. And then read me some continued for 16 years.
Yes. And obviously we've updated it as we've grown up, because
Obviously, oh my God.
so,
You should have seen...
some of the stuff that we wrote.
Because so this is important to say, because while I was like coming of age and like putting my fantasies and it was kinky as hell. Don't get me wrong, like it was kinky as it still is, but I didn't have any of the rules or the framework of the anything. So it was
Problematic.
so
So very. And we started adding me into the story as well. And so it was just
Chaos.
chaos.
yes. Yes.
So is there any of the original stuff still in there? Because I've listened to
yeah,
the first
loads.
season. Yeah.
Yes.
Loads.
Yes, loads. We just matured it and put it into a safe framework, if that makes sense.
There's also, we have our version, which is literally based on our favourite band, and then the version that we make for the podcast, which is pretty much the same.
It is.
Apart
It's
from
just
certain
filtered
details and
of their
slightly more
appearance, their names,
filtered.
other
And
stuff.
it is indeed it has been inspired by many bands.
Many bands.
Many bands.
Yes.
We won't ask who the real band is, right? Are we allowed to know?
No.
No.
For copyright reasons, no, Nicole, no.
No. We know we have been through this. Yes, we cannot
We
say
neither
that.
confirm nor deny.
But you never know if in another 10 years or even 5 or whatever, we are incredibly successful, we get on a radar, they make it known that they like it, then we will have negotiations.
Yes.
I love a good negotiation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell us about how like the process of you two writing together has started, because all right, you've got this version that you started, Niccole, when you were 15 years ago, and Bella's come in. Do you guys instantly click on the same like writing style or like way to express yourself, or is that a point of difference that still comes up?
Honestly, if I could say it this way, when we say Bella helps creatively edit, we do it together. So it's not like Bella goes off and edits on her own.
No. She'll be reading it and I'll go, oh, what about this? If we, this.
She'll be like, what if he did that? Or what if I did that? Because very often it's from her, but when it's Bella, that's where a lot of the editing comes in.
Well, also we've been adding me into the story, and
yes,
how I first entered the story is not how
she is now in the story. Because when she first entered the story, I'd written a lot by the time we decided. I think it was also like 14 years ago, we decided to put Bella in the story. And by that, I'd written so much that I didn't want to go back. But then when we started as we grew older and stuff, I was like, nah, you need to be in there from the beginning. Otherwise it's boring. Yeah.
And we wanted to be our best friend selves, not just this person that became best friends through this tour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we when we edit, it would literally be like we're sitting together, and Bella she wouldn't edit like the story necessarily.
No.
The big things in a different way. It would just be like, oh, I would think it would be cool if we added this, or
and what if they say this instead, or it's that sort of little bits and bobs.
And also, but what I am trying to get Bella to do, if you will allow me to say this, is to add and write her own bloody sex scenes.
I'm not
because she makes me write her sex scenes.
Hey, I'm not a writer, you are.
But okay, but here's the issue, right? This is a strange one. Yes. But of the whole band, Xander, so the lead guitarist of the band, who from basically the moment Bella and I met in real life, we basically swore each other off our favorites. Because we honestly believed one day we were going to meet this band, and we were like, no.
This is not allowed. He is mine and he is yours.
Exactly. And then, it literally did something to me that I cannot find him attractive.
I don't find Niccole, Nicole's
Jason.
person,
Just say
Jason. Yeah, I was trying to.
You were like, which name?
Ah!
So now she makes me write her sex scenes, and I cannot because I'm like, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything, Bella. I can't make it up. And when she does it. I don't know what's the problem. Why can't you write your own scenes?
I'm terrible at writing. Plus, I sort of get stuck, and I'm like, ugh. And then I'm like, okay, I'll come back to it, and then I never come back to it. Consistency is not there. I've always hated writing things. I am dyslexic, and I've always had a thing trying to put something from my head down onto a page. I have it in my head, but I can't put it on a page.
Whereas I am
you just
good at that.
Yes.
Well, it's good that you guys can work as a team. Obviously, pick up the slack where it's needed, and then you guys will step up at different points. But what did you guys do with the original writing? Was it just kept to you guys? Did you try and release a book or something? And did you try and do anything with it, or you just really tried to keep it under wraps?
Really under wraps.
It was our safe space for us when
Yeah.
we needed to escape reality.
Yeah. To give you an idea, until we decided to make this podcast, which has not been that long. It's not even been a year since Bella had the
I made a
freakish
joke.
idea.
I had no, not a freakish idea. I made a joke that we should do a podcast because we got to a part of the story that we hadn't rewritten since we were first at uni,
Which was absolutely psychotic.
and it was so ridiculous and hilarious that I was like, oh, we should make this into a podcast as a joke. And then
I
Niccole,
took
as
it
she
very
does,
seriously.
she runs with things, and I'm like, all right, here we go. Off we go then.
Yeah. So up until that point, it was massively under wraps. No one ever read it but us or knew about it. And here's the thing, right? It's a massive act in vulnerability, because it's not just kink and sexuality in general.
And putting
It's
ourselves
literally
into the page.
ours. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you listen to this podcast, you go, oh, Nicole's into this, Bella's into this.
This is what they like.
Yeah. So it's very vulnerable. And not just that, it also shows, well, more so now that we're getting into the second part of the first season, but it's showing a lot of my vulnerabilities, or what do you call it? Negative traits or difficulties with certain things. And for Bella, it will eventually as well.
Yes, it will.
It does as well. But to be honest, also for the band, because you're starting to see really what can happen on a tour when everyone's constantly together.
Because it's so it's a different time. So as I think we say it in the podcast sometime, but we've always said being on tour, 2 months on tour it's like a year together.
Yeah.
But
yeah, actually, it's Mike who says it in the podcast,
Yes.
because we say, "Whoa, how has it been a week?" And it feels like it's been 6
Oh,
months.
yeah, a
and he
week is
goes,
like a
"Yeah,
month."
That's 4.
yeah,
That's how your relationships build really fast.
which is why it's always surprised us when we get into the writing, because Nikki used to put the dates of things so we knew where we were in it. And we were like, oh no, that must have happened last week. It was 2 days ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And already you've done a thing.
So how much of this have you how has it affected you when you said it's kind of vulnerable for you guys to be sharing personal details or, things, interests that you might not normally have talked about before, but now you're putting it on a podcast? Is there anything that you've held back? You don't have to say what, but is there anything that you've held back, or you're sort of adjusted to let yourself go and let it all out?
Not really. I mean, mine, as much as it is very much me, it's the life I would have imagined. I have health issues, and so I trained as an actor and a dancer primarily, and I've got this condition that has sort of since I was 14 I've lived with pain and fatigue, and slowly it stripped a lot away from me. So all my dancing kind of got put to a side because I was sore and exhausted and he couldn't work as well as going do that. So we've put me in the story as a dancer. So in some ways, mine isn't quite as vulnerable as Niccole. The intimate details are.
Yeah, the kinks are, and the sexuality is,
and the stories and the things like
and
that.
The personality.
And the personality. That's all me, but it's the life I always wanted, to be a professional dancer or something. So in some ways, yes, it's been very vulnerable, but it's been quite freeing for me to have that in my head, that even if it's not in real life, there's somewhere that I can go where I am that person that I wanted to be. Yeah.
Because you are acting. I mean, it is being yourself more of the time, but it works.
I mean, the accents are dodgy as hell.
Well,
the accents are questionable. Yes, I will say that.
So very questionable.
But to be honest, we've gotten better.
Have we?
Yes.
Have we?
I think
completely?
We have. Yes, because since the latter part of the season, we have actually. Well, at least we have on the Californian ones.
On the
so
California,
much on the rest of them.
The rest of them are. Whew.
We've had some internal help on California.
Yes.
Yes, you need some. There is some nuance in a lot of the accents from different regions, I guess. So
yes, there is that, but also we do it for fun, and like half the time it's humor, because it's not incredibly important that
we
the
get it
accent
right
is true to it.
And it's that sort of thing. It's different than if we was doing an acting gig and say needed to do an accent for full on character that we would take more seriously, and we do know how to do that.
We do, but a lot of the time because also to give you guys an idea of why it's so hard, because we can do Californian accents, and we can do Texan accents, and we can do Cockney accents, and we can do Irish accents and whatever. But switching in and out when you've got like 7 people speaking one after the other, and you're going from Bella to me to the Californians to the guy from like New Orleans to, you know what I mean? It's that's where it's hard, because it's like
we end up going southern a lot.
We do. When you miss, because
all molds together.
It all kind of
makes
just
sense though, because California is on the border of Texas, or it borders. It's there's if you slightly overdo your vowels, it goes south, and once we're there, it's so hard to break.
It's so hard to get out. We get lost.
Like,
in it.
No, we're here now.
Yeah, but that makes them for some good outtakes, and I know that you guys have been good with putting together your outtakes and promoting your podcast through some of the funny bits that people might not ever hear before.
We're not afraid to be twats.
Those are the gag reels, because now in the next part of the season we've got actual outtakes, which are still some of them are funny, but some of them are also just like good information, often about BDSM that we don't put in.
Or just random bullshit that we go off on.
Sometimes that too. I have a hard job editing, because we try to not make the episodes incredibly long. Well, originally the cutoff was an hour, and then we gave up because
it just wasn't happening.
That's so long, yeah.
We go on too many tangents.
And because so many people were like, what we enjoy, well, they enjoy the story, but they say they also enjoy us going off and chatting about stuff. So we were like, well, if you want to keep a bit of that environment, we're going to have to do something.
And we've been toying with the idea for season 2. We're going to set up a Patreon for those that subscribe or something. They'll get the the extended version of the podcast with it all in.
Yeah.
As opposed to just the one that's tried to keep it contained a bit more.
Yeah.
I suppose it is a podcast, and people do enjoy that personal side to things where you branch off or go on a tangent. It's not like it's an audio book where it's like, well, you're going off subjects now. Can you get back on track? So people are, I think, happy to get to know you guys a bit more.
Yeah, they're more accepting of it, and the story is also just getting to know us and our silliness, basically.
It just informs them more of our character.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the story.
So yeah, Niccole, how do you feel when it comes to sharing the more personal side of things? Are you more like an open book, or do you find yourself, I don't really want to share this, but I will, and you sort of push yourself?
Honestly, it started off a little bit difficult because when we decided to do the podcast, my main thing was I had come out to my parents to my family as bisexual like when I was 25, so that was fine and taken care of. And it was funny because my dad was like, yeah, it's genetic. And then like it took me like 20 seconds to go, oh. But it was just not ever something he needed to mention before because he'd been in a monogamous relationship with my mother for 40 years. So it was like...
Never came up.
Yep. But now it's come up. Now it's like... Anyway. And then what I hadn't come out to them or to anyone except for Bella and friends and people in this kink scene who knew was kink. Because it's a sexuality as well, by the way. Here's my TED Talk bit, guys.
Go off.
Kink is a sexuality, if you didn't know. So in the same way that you can be other sexualities, it's something you cannot live without. Like you were born that way, you cannot choose to, well, you can choose not to engage, but ouch, it's going to be hard.
That usually turns into something rather unhealthy.
Exactly, and a bit volatile. So yeah, it is a sexuality, and then therefore also genetic. So when you find that out, you're like, okay. Oh. Now I know.
You learn things you don't really want to learn.
Yeah.
I'm just blithely ignoring that fact.
Well, we knew about yours because
we found a magazine. It was just like, no, thank you.
I was not surprised. I was like, yeah.
That checks out.
Yeah. But anyway, I also wasn't surprised about my dad because when I was a teenager, funnily enough, the first time I came across kink was erotic books. And because my dad had them, and obviously he hid them well, but I found them well. And we also grew up in a very open household for a lot of things. My parents from very young said we could ask any questions we wanted, So I had a very different education, which I didn't realize until I was an adult. And I'd spoken to other people and they were like, my parents never told me about sex. And I was like, my dad, like we were talking about it all the time. Like, well, all the time. That sounds strange, but
we'd be sitting there watching a Bond
film
film,
and
my dad would literally cover my eyes if we're watching a film that had.
My dad would not. I remember when we were like 60. No, we weren't even like 15. Probably. I would go to my dad and be like, "Dad, there's this film I really want to watch. It's arty. Look, it doesn't have any violence, but it's rated 16 for sex. Do you think?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay." You know what I mean? But if violence, no. But sex, okay.
That was the line.
It's a very hippie. We were a bunch of hippies. We still are. But yeah, they're very cool people. And what was my point? Yeah, so where it was vulnerable is I'd never come out to my parents as kinky. And I don't know if that's I think most people don't even think to ever come out to their parents about kink.
To be fair, I think they probably sort of knew.
Yeah.
Because your comments all the time. Just when you talk, I spent a lot of time at Nikki's house.
My house. Yeah.
And of all the conversations that we had, lots of stuff came up and you would make sudden comments that'd be like, "Oh, spankies."
Oh, right. Yeah, but spankies is one thing. There are people who aren't considered particularly kinky who do that, That's just kind of like, oh, I read 50 Shades of Grey once. Don't get us started. But that's yeah. But I know what you're saying. I don't hide it very well. My parents weren't surprised, by the way, when I told them.
When Nikki has a thought, it quite often just comes straight out.
Yeah. I have a very good
a
very good example of that happening at uni. And we were just delving into the beginning of stuff. We're like Bella, Emily's another close friend of ours that went to uni with us, and all three found the kink scene in London roughly around the same time, 2013. And we had finished uni for a year or so by that point. I was still studying music elsewhere, but I remember even before we found the kink scene to be a thing, the same way that like before you realize, oh, there are other gay people, you know, or you're just keeping it to yourself. I was sitting in the common room of the drama department waiting to go into class, and other people were talking, and I overheard one of our like fellow actors go, yeah, so I watched water porn, and I was not even part of the conversation, I was in my own little word, without even thinking, my mouth went, hydro bondage. Like, you're wrong, that's not what it's called. And then literally you could hear a pin drop. They all kind of looked at me. And then before they continued their conversation, I remember Callum going, oh yeah, that's Niccole, don't worry.
Yeah. And this is what I meant about the fact that these offhanded comments.
Yeah.
Of course her parents knew.
Yeah, they did. Well, they certainly weren't surprised. Just as they weren't surprised by bisexuality either.
But we also used to have when we shared a flat, Emily, Niccole and I, we had a spatula that we kept by the front door, and it was our spanking spatula.
In case of
It did
emergency.
have
Just cause.
It did have a little note that said, use in case of emergencies.
No, that was the popper. We
that was the popper.
The party popper, and underneath a glass bowl, and it said, break in case of orgy.
Oh, in case of orgy, that's right. Which never happened. That popper, what happened to the popper?
I don't know.
Probably still there.
Yeah, probably.
You did mention 50 Shades of Grey, and I was going to ask you about other literature or stuff like that that's potentially, influenced or helped you guys on that. I know you kind of backhanded that a little bit, like it's kind of I saw the movie. It was not amazing. But is there anything out there that you guys have taken sort of inspiration from in the writing sense?
Wow. No. Sorry, that sounds really like...
Yeah.
That's okay.
That sounds so like... We read a lot.
We do
I would
read
say
a
more,
lot.
rather than like heavily kink-orientated books, because they exist and I do read them. I've taken more influences from like romanticises, but not for the kink stuff. So it's two kind of separate worlds that we've put together. Do you know what I mean?
You mean for the storytelling side of it?
Yeah. And then like the little bit of flirting with it, like dark romance kind of vibes. But then the kink stuff is definitely, that stuff is from mostly experience or want to experience, if you know what I mean. But even when it's a fantasy, when you've been in the scene for over a decade, holy shit.
What?
You can, yeah, we're old now, older. You can imagine how that would work but we're still but that is something I find. You can ask Bella. I go on too much and she's like, stop it. Because I try to I over explain. Okay guys, so this is important to know that this part is really just conflict and fantasy to drive the story, and this is what real kinky people do. And Bella's like, they get it.
You've said it like 10 times this episode.
But I'm really worried that I feel a very strong responsibility to do this right and not be the 50 Shades of Grey in the world.
Yes, because that did not, the kink community, not fans, because it's not safe. It's not what that is. That's not how kink relations are done.
Yeah. So the thing is, I don't blame the author of 50 Shades of Grey, but I think she might have done a little bit of more research or spoken to actual people in the scene before she released things. But because a lot of people get away with stuff when they say it's fiction, right?
Yeah. Or at least put a little disclaimer going,
don't try this at home vibes.
This is for story purposes or something.
Yeah, but so many people, I know this because I remember when it came out and the influx, and that it can be okay if you find your kink through something like that.
Great. For it.
Because it is a sexuality. You're not gonna, people who aren't kinky aren't suddenly gonna become kinky because they read a thing.
No, and it certainly made it more acceptable.
Exactly. I think that for that reason we can't just be angry at it. But there are books that are way better for it if you're gonna go and like look at a thing.
That was a question I was going to have. Compared to when you started, is there more just sort of like a general acceptance of that community now? Because I feel like there's a lot of, I think maybe the internet and social media has brought out a lot of things online about the books that have been around for years, and there's always that meme of like your grandma has read more filth than you ever have in your life.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like, is that,
Mills
do you
and
feel that?
Boone and all of that? Yeah.
My mother reads a lot of that romancy stuff, but like, and some of them can get real
steamy,
intense. Yeah. So, but Mills and Boone, it's kind of this same level, but it's not particularly kinky. But
no. There's definitely a lot of smutty books out there.
Yeah.
And people have been reading smut for centuries.
Well, since books have existed, by the way. Because where do you think sadism, the word, comes from? Sadomasochism, where all of this comes from, you know? That it was coined a very long time ago.
Yes.
Well, actually, it was... I don't know how much truth there is to this, but it's kind of generally culturally accepted that sadism was named after the Marquis de Sade, he was a Frenchman who mostly was a writer, but got imprisoned during his day because of what he wrote. But he wrote, when I say, like, you can read that stuff today and you can be shocked.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, there's stuff I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like, but that's why I don't think he did all of that, by the way.
No.
I think he just,
it's fantasies.
It was a social comment. I think it was more than that. I think it was social commentary on the times. Because it was just like, he was during the French Revolution, right? So it was when all of those power dynamics were going on real strong.
Have you guys studied literature and history and all that? Because when it comes to writing and putting things together, it is an art. There is a way to do things better than, say, as someone just trying it for the first time. Did you have Niccole, did you have a background in writing at school before you started writing your own things?
I've been writing my own things since I was like 11 years old, even when it was terrible, just like blah.
She's got published books.
Yeah.
Self-published books.
Really?
Yeah. A historical fiction.
Yeah, funnily enough. Fiction. It's not kinky.
Not at all.
That's okay. What's it called?
It's no smut, no. It's called Mother of the Fire, the first one. And there's a little novella that comes with it as well.
Which is great. I love them.
How much time did it take to put all that together?
I wrote and rewrote it for a long time. But like the actual putting the whole story down was when I was in the UK and I wasn't allowed to work by law. Because that's a whole different story.
Visa.
I had a bit of a nightmare in the UK because for some reason, after the Conservative government came into power in 2011, they targeted me personally and tried to kick me out of the country for years.
For over a decade.
Yeah,
she was fighting them.
No, not over. Well, since I arrived pretty much until I left, sure, okay.
Yeah.
So 9 years. But I remember going, so basically at some point they gave me a deportation letter and we had to go to court for 3 years to basically fight against them kicking me out. So they stripped me of basically all my rights as being there. So I couldn't go anywhere. I had to stay with my parents. I couldn't work. I couldn't earn any money. I couldn't basically do anything. So I was like, guess I'm going to write a book.
Yeah.
And I did continue to play in bands and stuff. And now that they can't come after me, I will admit that sometimes I was a little bit paid under the table for music
straight
stuff. And it was very little. It was like £10 sometimes. But this is the thing. They wanted me to report every fortnight to the immigration service to be like, hi, I'm still here, sign a piece of paper.
Like you're on probation like a criminal.
Yeah, exactly, like a criminal. And it was in East London. I couldn't earn anything, but I had to pay, because you could only report between 7 and 10 a.m. So freaking rush hour on public transport. But anyway, so during that time, I wrote a book. And funnily enough, it was a historical fiction that took place during the Restoration period, so like 1660s, between England and France.
Yes.
Because a lot of these politics needed a place to get out.
Air out.
So that was like sort of your release of the frustrations of what you were going through.
She burnt down London.
I burned down London. Yeah, exactly.
You literally burnt down London.
Not literally. I burned down London fictionally.
Fictionally.
Don't send the British government back after me.
Just reporting her for crimes she never committed.
Yeah.
Yes.
How about you, Bella? Did you get into any writing or anything like that growing up, or was this something that you've just sort of like, it's an interest and you just sort of ran with it?
I've always loved reading. Reading is one of the things that I love. Writing, I have always hated with a fiery passion. But I always liked the idea that I could write, and I did a little bit for school, as you have to, and wrote a really crazy dark poem that scared a lot of my teachers, who made me come and have a talk with them going, are you okay?
Oh,
Are
no.
you sure? And I was like,
One
yeah,
of those.
fine. But storytelling, that has always been a huge thing to me. And reading, that's where my love came in. So when Niccole was writing this in, it just became exciting to be a part of that. And like we said, I don't really do the writing. I suggest little edits.
But she, the bit that she, like the sex scene, I literally forced upon her. I was like, you will write.
I wrote like the beginning part of
She
one.
wrote a couple of paragraphs, but what you wrote was great. I didn't have an issue with it. I could litrify it a little bit, but the idea was there. And the thing is that makes sense because Bella is a very avid reader. So am I, and I don't trust writers who don't read. That's like musicians who don't listen to music.
It's like, what are you doing?
You cannot do.
So we know you guys are halfway through season 1 and there's more to come. How much of the total amount of stuff that you've written has been come out in season 1? So how far into your story is season 1?
Not very far. We have so much. We have so much.
We're gonna try not to be very vague on you, not to give too much away.
Yep, sure.
But
try.
Let's say by the end of season 1, so 20 episodes of like hour and a half-ish each, we will be 1 week into the tour.
And how long does the tour go for?
The tour is
6
a month.
weeks.
No. Is it 6 weeks?
I think we made it 6 weeks.
So we've got a few seasons there.
Or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, we have definitely, we will have at least 6, at least. And then, spoiler alert, then we go to California for a season or 2 or 3.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually true. No one else has ever asked about that. So
No. So
no one
you
else
literally
has
have heard it here first.
So we have potential if people want it, and also if we stay vibing with this for years to come, because it sounds like years, we have the potential to make this last a really long time. A really long time. And because we write it, we can just write some more.
Yeah, you just keep going. Doesn't need to stop.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you guys more on the process of making a podcast. So you guys are a few months into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much of your material do you change to make into the podcast? And how have you found editing podcasts in general and putting it all together?
It's been a swift learning curve. I
Yeah.
can tell you that.
You mean how do we change the literal content?
Yeah. Like, do you guys read straight off the page of what you've written, or do you adjust things so that you can, talk to each other specifically for the podcast?
Absolutely not.
No, we read it off the page.
You want to answer this, Bella?
We literally read it off the page, and we've taken out little bits of the she said, I said when it's between us talking.
Yeah,
because it just slows it down and
yeah.
you don't get the... But no, we read it straight off the page, and we try to do it so much ahead of time so we don't know what we're reading, because we forget all the time what we've written. So our reactions are organic to it. And quite often it's bits we've forgotten about, and we get confused about where we are in the story because we'll be reading further along or editing somewhere else, but we're recording this bit.
Yeah.
So
but just
fun.
to be clear, if this was part of your question, we do not script our comments ever.
Oh, no.
It's all happens in the moment.
Yeah.
It all happens in the moment. Otherwise, the vibe would be off.
Yeah.
I don't think
And
it would
wouldn't
work.
be as much fun.
No, it wouldn't work if it was all scripted.
We don't even write our intros or outros.
No, we just make it all... I think that might be clear.
I think that's probably
some
clear.
of the subjects we suddenly get on and we're like, whoa, what are we doing?
and we've had to start telling ourselves, right, we have to stop going so much off of topic because the intro becomes like half an hour long and we're like, no, we can't do that.
We can't do that to me because, so going to the editing question, I do the editing and it is a job because, because mostly just deciding what to keep and what to either put in outtakes or in gag reel, or before it was get rid of, because for some reason we didn't think to do outtakes.
Yes.
So I just got rid of it. But now we're going to try and get as much content as possible in various forms. For season 2, we're also hoping to do video, so that would be even more editing. Great.
Yes.
But we are, but the editing was, to be honest, I'd never edited podcasts before, so it is different, but I'd edited a lot of music. And in some ways, I want to say podcasting editing is easier. But in a lot of ways not, because most of the time it's trying to make sure our volumes, because Bella's recording long distance compared to me.
She's recording in the south of France and I'm here in Somerset, England.
Which is the west
southwest
country. Yeah.
Of England.
In case people don't know where Somerset is, right?
Yes.
But basically we're far enough apart that for me, a lot of the time, working with the sound, we now that we have the same mics, it helps a lot. But trying to balance volume, making sure after music intervals, it doesn't suddenly become really loud or really quiet. So I often listen to it in my car because I feel like that's where the sound is the shittest. So if people can understand and it works well there,
yes,
then they should be able to do it.
Is there any sort of podcast inspiration that you guys have heard and we want to do it like this, or or is it just all off the cuff?
No, we have a few things that inspire us. Bella and I are both thinking of the first one.
Yes.
Which is huge now. Oh, if we could get halfway there, I'd be so psyched.
My dad wrote a porno. Yeah. I mean...
Oh, that one, yeah. You guys mentioned that a few times.
Yeah.
Because it was just... It's just so funny. But we like to think of ours as the kinky metal version, but with better writing.
The kinky metal version with better writing. For sure, because... Well... What we have in common is, I think, the humor, really.
Yes.
We're lighthearted about it, about a serious subject. But I just didn't want... It would have been so weird for Bella and I, the kind of people that we are, to go and sit there and be like, so, today we are going to talk about CNC. Or whatever. And then it's too serious. And
we don't
cannot.
do serious.
I have a dom currently who likes to say, if you can't absolutely explode and laugh your ass off in the middle of sex, you're doing it wrong.
That's fair.
If you take yourself too seriously, it's not going to be a good time.
No, but I think that's one of the best things about your podcast is that it's you guys being you. It's not scripted, like completely scripted. It's your personality comes out. There's a lot of humor and bouncing off each other and tangents.
Yeah.
So I think that
So
makes
many
that's what makes it most of the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's very kind of you. Thank you.
Yes, that's sort of what we were hoping.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it really comes across that way. And so, I hope that you guys, well, if you choose to keep that sort of format, I think it works well. But what sort of feedback have you guys gotten from, say, comments, or has anyone emailed in and given you guys feedback or tips or questions?
Mostly comments on episodes, or like sometimes like private messages, but rather to social media than to our like website. But it's also early days still, I think. I think
we're still finding our...
Yeah, we only just found our niche, I think, like a month ago.
Yeah.
Properly. And so we're still going with that. But what have we received? Kind of similar. Like a lot of people saying, I really love the humor. A lot of people saying, I'll tell you, we don't want to go through too many of them. Bella can say a few if she wants. But a big one that made a huge impact on me was I had a woman contact me from the States, and she made me cry. Not in a bad way, in a good way. Because it was very touching. She was like, thank you so much for doing this, because she was like, with everything being banned over here and like, smut and literature and all this kind of stuff becoming this like evil thing by, from the red pill people. She was like, this is such a necessary thing. And she was like, and it being so lighthearted and so much fun and so humoristic. Like she was basically like going, you're creating a safe space for me to go, wait a second. Sex is good. Sex is fun. Sex is pure. It is not this horrible evil thing that people are trying to like push back and
no, it's
get rid of.
Natural and it should be enjoyed. It's joyous. It's life making. It's
life energy. That's the thing, and so that was incredibly touching, because I didn't think about that,
Yeah, we've mainly had just a lot of really lovely positive comments, and another person mailed us to say thank you for sharing this, because this has given me the courage to share my own writing and get back into my own writing. And that was
good point.
That's cool.
That was really lovely.
And a whole bunch of people going, ooh, I'm actually interested. I've always been interested in kink. Do you have some tips? Do you know where to start? Do you know what I can do? Not that we are... I mean, we're happy to give some advice from our own experience, but we're not kink educators. What I would love is to big up some actual kink educators. There are loads. Or like professionals in the scene, like who can give you that kind of idea. Because we don't have any actual qualifications on that side of things.
Yeah, there are a few times where you sort of have felt the need, it seems like, to explain what it is you're talking about, or the ins and outs, and maybe things to be wary of, sort of like just so people don't try this at home kind of thing. And, there's a few things in there that you have touched on, but do you feel any sort of responsibility to be educational in that way? Because some of the stuff you do naturally comes out as like an educational sort of experience.
I think it's been a big thing, well, especially for Niccole, but also for me, to say, look, there are story versions that are okay and what is actually okay, to make it sort of clear what's what. We want to...
We blur the lines a tiny bit, but then we point out when we do, so people know.
We want to make it sort of clear and make it more welcoming, and sort of... Yes, we give a bit of... I wouldn't call it education, but advice.
Advice, or it's rather just, I think, definitions, explaining, because what happened, and that we didn't do that right from the start, but what happened is, here's another thing, people who contacted us. I had two different psychologists contact me, one from like Uzès, which is like 20 kilometers from me in France, and one from Chicago, in the States, both saying, you know, oh, this is amazing. There aren't enough resources in this kind of field that has an entertainment value, because not a lot of people who are new to kink want to sit there and listen to a play-by-play of this is how you do. I mean, or it's not easy listening, you know what I mean? I think it is important to do that and like get mentors, but it's also cool to get to know what you like by listening to us and then going, oh, that turned me on.
I wonder.
Why?
Oh, where could this take me next?
Right. So it's more us like going, these are things, and then you decide whether you like it or if it feels good or not. And but anyway, and the French psychologist was actually the one that made a big impact, because she said, I want to share these resources with my French clients. Can you make French transcripts, because otherwise they won't understand it? So that's how that started. And then she also said, I really like it. It would be also good. And actually, my dad is also a psychologist. And he listened to a bit of he's listened up to episode 11 and then told me, this is so right up my street, but I'm going to stop listening because it's you and Bella, and I'm starting to feel weird about it.
Yeah.
We were like, that's
We're like,
fine.
yes.
Because by episode 11, like where we took the break, and where we will continue, is really where it starts hitting really hard. And I think my dad just made it through the threesome, like, okay.
Ooh, okay.
And I was like, because he wants to be supportive, right? And I was like, you don't have to be that supportive, Dad.
You really don't.
You be supportive from a long distance away.
my family and family friends, I've just gone, look, this is what I'm doing. I would suggest you don't listen to it, but if you do, you cannot come at me because I warned you.
Yeah.
And they've all just gone, yeah, no, we're not going to listen. And I was like, this is good choices.
That's where I was hoping to take this, was how has this sort of affected the people around you and, you know, people who know you're doing this? Is there, I'm hoping there hasn't been too much feelings of shame or anything like that. Or like, you know, has anyone put any sort of half backhanded comments, or like has everyone been super supportive?
This is more of a Bella question, because for me, yes, everyone's been super supportive. Like
my family, certain parts of them were like, should you really be doing this? If you don't think we can listen, if we shouldn't be listening to this, do you really think you should be doing this? And I was like, yes, it's fine. But it's not their thing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they're not the audience you're targeting anyway.
Exactly.
So it's not like, yeah.
So they ask how recording's going. They are supportive in their own way. Like they do tell people this is what I'm doing, but they don't really tell them what it's about. So
they just go, Bella's podcasting.
When I meet them, they're like, I hear you're podcasting. What's it about? And I'm like, oh, crap, here we go again.
What do you say? I'm curious. When they go, what's
like,
it about? You're like,
well, it's me and my best friend on tour with our favourite metal band. It's a bit smutty.
So you do say that.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the people that I've spoken to when it comes to explaining, to be fair, a lot of the people I've interviewed previously have been mainly gamers. So explaining gaming and streaming and YouTube videos is kind of a weird conversation to have with different generations. They don't really get it. But I feel like, is podcasting something that a lot of people just sort of know what it is? There's no need to really explain it?
I've had to explain it to a few people, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think one or two, but mostly, you know, podcasts have become, someone will recommend a podcast to someone else. So a lot of, especially around my friends and family, that they may not listen to them, but they're aware of what they are.
Yeah.
But they didn't know that we could do this sort of thing.
Yes. But I've had to explain it to people because they're like, what is a podcast? And I'm like, it's like a radio, but you can have it, listen to it anytime you want.
Yeah.
But I've not heard a lot of, it's definitely generational. Like my parents, for example, had never listened to a podcast before I happened, like before we started this. Never. But yeah, so my dad was the other one, I was going to say, the psychologist, because he'd listened and he went, I'm really enjoying it. Like before the threesomes and stuff, before it got real intense.
Before it got really intense with us.
Before I was describing what my face looked like during an orgasm, and he was like, okay, done.
That's enough, thank you.
That's enough for me, yeah.
But he was very kind about it. He was like, this is literally my thing, like through and through. But the fact that it's you and Bella... He was actually a bit annoyed. He was like, could someone else do it?
Could it be someone else?
Yeah, that's the thing. But I was like, you know what? Don't feel bad about it. Like, just support from afar. But one of his comments was, like, I think it was like episode 7. He called me. He was so excited. He was like, oh my God, Niccole, this shit is better than 50 Shades of Grey. And I was like, thank God. Thank you. That's great. And then I had to explain to my dad that we don't actually... view 50 Shades of Grey very well in the kink scene, and he was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. And then he went, but you guys can be way better and bigger. And I was like, yeah, he's very idealistic, man. And then he was like, but you know what, he was like, yeah,
she has plans for us. And I'm like, okay,
like,
then.
if I could give you some constructive criticism, not all the time, because I know it's not the vibe, but like maybe from time to time, just explain a little bit of the terms that you guys use, because he was like, because stuff like brat tamer or brat handler, he was like, what is this? Because dom and sub, yeah, okay, most people can get on, but like when most people can get on. So it was gonna happen, but most people can understand that, more or less. Whereas my dad was like, when you start talking about brats, and then you talk about brat tamers, and then you talk about certain types of implements, or when daddy dom little girl, which I think we touched on but very briefly, because it's not really what we do.
Because it's not our thing.
But I mean, it depends. I could do it with a specific person, but it's not something we do in the podcast.
But it's also that's one point I want to make. We're very careful not to kink shame. We kink ask why.
Kink curious, yeah.
Kink curious, but not kink. No
shame.
No
kink shaming.
You never yuck someone's yum.
Yeah.
Never. You did mention 50 Shades again. I feel like that is sort of like the bar for maybe the general public, maybe not the people in the scene. So how do you feel like the real side of that world can come out to the public in a better way? Because, I mean, 50 Shades tried to do it, and it was sort of like, I mean, me watching that for the first time, I was like, this is kind of like, just the acting was bad. Anyway, but...
Yeah, well, I'm talking...
What's the plan?
The film by itself is one thing, but I was talking about the books. Because actually, the books were more problematic than the films. Way more. Because there's stuff in the film that didn't happen in the films that happened in the books. Okay, so quickly just touching on, I wrote an essay about this, by the way.
You wrote
passionate about this topic.
I have a problem with, and then I got a distinction, so.
Yes.
My biggest issue with it is that the way she implied the main character, the Dom, Christian, that he was this horribly abused, had a terrible childhood, and then got like basically groomed by an older woman, and then he became a Dom, and basically he was picking women that looked like his mother so he could beat them. And I was like, oh, no, this is not accurate. Because then there was this implied idea that if you like kink, you have to be fucked somehow in the head, or you have to have had some sort of incredible trauma. And yes, a lot of us have had trauma, but the other side of the coin, you have I want to express how powerfully kink has helped me with so much trauma, because it has that framework. So you always have to talk before and after, and everyone has to agree. It's so much safer than vanilla sex. I haven't had vanilla sex in so freaking long because don't want to.
Yeah.
And it was just, you know what I mean? Like, so it's, yes, there could be trauma for some people, but that is not why you are kinky. Kinky is something completely different. And that one, like, got a bit in my throat about it. And then other than that, then follow the kink rules, right? So like when you say something is kink, but then, for example, he didn't stop when she safe worded.
Yeah, that's a
no.
That's a big no.
And also a lot of it was very manipulating. You know? Like when they were agreeing on stuff, I think they touched on this briefly in the film, but like in the book, it was a lot more pressing. It's like, oh, she didn't want to do a certain thing, and he was like, oh, you know,
oh, come on,
once you try it, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
There was also the thing that she was she a virgin, or she was
a virgin.
very...
No, she was a virgin. And it's that whole...
Like, don't even... all these freaking romanticities, or like every single time this power imbalance of like this dom I say with incredible apostrophes. He was like, what, how old was he? 28? And she was like 22, or maybe even a bit 19, I don't know. And then she is like virginal, and he's the first real guy she ever has sex with, and now he's her mentor, and he teaches her all these depraved things, and wow. Which we were also careful not to do. No. Not to do, because we were like, so when we start, like in our podcast from the very get-go, and I hope this is very clear, and to be clear, it is, we are sluts. Like, but it's important because we don't want to be these virginal little things who show up on the tour and then everyone takes advantage of us. What the fuck is that?
No.
We are adult women. We arrived
we
there
have
with
had
33
partners.
years old in the story.
Yes.
No, we're 33 years old. And so obviously, so it's more of like this is my sexuality. I take control of my pleasure. It is important. We negotiate. There is a power dynamic, but there's no this like little virgin that shows up that just
doesn't know anything and is being taught.
Yeah, and that's clear from the very first episode, right? Like, I mean, I'm completely myself. I'm lost. I'm confused. But then first opportunity, I'm like,
blood up?
Anyone? Not anyone. Yeah. So that was another thing I wanted to make clear. When I say we're sluts, we mean for very specific people.
Oh yeah.
Don't come at us with the dick pics and the gross messages,
no,
guys. That's not
no
cool.
Unsolicited dick pics.
I mean, to be on the internet as a woman, I've spoken about this with a few of the guests. There are some DMs and stuff that you just, as you know, growing up, you just stay away from. But then it gets sort of like accentuated when people know who you are. They think they have a relationship with you and they've never spoken to you, and they feel free to just send you whatever.
Exactly.
Has that happened yet? Because probably will.
Yes is the word, yeah. My dad asked me the same thing. He asked us both the same thing. He was like, how do you
I don't know, a questionnaire thing.
Yeah.
We did a question video thing.
That was my dad. Wasn't it? No, it wasn't. That was a different time. Sorry, I'm confusing questions that we'd received. Yes. But my dad was very worried about this. He was like, do you guys get mean messages, or how do you deal? So
far, no. We've been very lucky so far.
Concerning the podcast, but in life we get a lot of bullshit. Yeah?
Oh yeah, life is a different story.
But the podcast side of things, there hasn't been any sort of interactions that have gone the wrong way.
Far.
Yeah.
No, but at the same time, we hammer on about consent so much. If they'd be like, go listen to the dang podcast.
Yes. It's like, how did you not understand this is not okay? We'll say it about 5,000 times in an episode.
All right, what's the plans for the coming seasons and the future? I know you said, Bella, you said Niccole has like big plans to do, but where would you personally like to take things?
I like her plans. I'm like, okay, I'll go along with them. But, you know, it would be great if we can earn money from doing this, first and foremost, to support ourselves. You know, it'd be great if it got so big that we could take it on tour or whatever, really. I'm sort of open to many things.
That is one of my long-term plans, that eventually will be touring and like doing live readings to live audiences, like laughing and like coming up with new stuff in the moment.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
It would. But that would, we need to have a decent fan base. Well, I mean, we wanted to create a community and we're doing it. So we're doing well, considering we started releasing 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But and that we haven't released for 3 months. Like, we need to do something.
It is coming. We do promise. We're hoping. We are hoping.
Are we gonna say it?
Not the end of May, beginning of June.
End of May, beginning of June. You heard it here first. We'll see if we can get the podcast out before your podcast comes out. See how accurate it is.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're hoping for. And to be fair, we have another 2 episodes to record, and then I have another 6 to edit.
And I've got to do all the transcribing and all the admin.
And we have to do all the
around
admin.
That.
But once we've recorded, which we are hoping to be able to finish by next week,
yes,
then
we're full on
it would just be editing and admin. So we're hoping that by end of May it should really be doable.
Yes.
And we'd be thrilled to have a summer of actual podcast releases, you know what I mean?
Because we have learned from our first half what not to do.
Yeah.
We started off having recorded a bunch, but we didn't edit it or get it ready to go out, and we started releasing because we got excited. And then it very quickly caught up with us, and we were desperately trying to do it 1 week at a time. And what with my health issues and whatnot, the whole idea of this was the fact that we could work around our timing. Niccole's got a full life she's married with a child. She's also gigging and...
Yeah, so we really need to make some money because we love doing this, but like we are currently doing everything ourselves as well. But to be honest, I think we'd continue regardless because we love it.
Because we love it.
We love it. But I think the men who live with us will be like,
you need to make
please.
some money.
Can you stop now? Or
we need you to contribute more.
Yes. So we are, but I think it is gonna happen. We're
getting
optimistic
there.
about it. It keeps growing. At the moment, we just we've not released something in a while, so numbers are a bit dwindly. But that's
although
normal.
you say that recently, there's been an upshot in listeners, which has been nice.
That's true.
Well, that's the thing. It's evergreen, so people will just start finding you at any time and start listening. It doesn't mean that week it comes out is the only time people will listen to it.
Oh, no,
exactly.
You're completely right.
Which is why we sort of knew, especially first season, was going to be under our own wing.
But one thing that is very interesting is statistically, the United States is now the country that listens the most.
Yes.
It overtook Europe.
Maybe they're just waiting to see how much more you butcher their accents or how well you can start to do them in the future.
We have had accent requests.
We have. So we can't be that bad.
No, I think I put in a request too. I want to see an Australian in there.
Yes.
And we are keeping that in mind.
Yes.
We are keeping that in mind. We have been thinking of possible people making them Australian.
Cool. Just an actor or someone running past that comes in for a little bit. They don't have to do it the whole season. Just representation is nice.
Season.
But no, I'm looking forward to the next season and, the years to come because I found you guys on social media and I really enjoyed what you guys do. And I'm so glad that you guys came and shared your story on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
We were so thrilled to be invited.
We really were.
Please be sure to leave a like, comment below and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This really helps out the channel and is totally free. And if you'd like to support the podcast further in exchange for extra videos, our members-only exclusive content can be found on Patreon and will be linked in the description below.